Oh, that movie is like, it's one of my favorite things that I've ever done for a lot of reasons, but but a big part of it is everything that you said about how it kind of happened. And I mean, you couldn't have written what happens in that movie. Like, if I would have told you this is what's going to happen, you would have been like, no, like, we're not going to let that happen to us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like that whole period of my life, and even everything before that. It's even if the video was probably shot during a good time, I probably still couldn't watch it because of how mentally, in just whatever the level of anguish and just depression and I don't know, the just it was so dark for me, like that entire period, and that I look back and like the songs and certain moments are like so incredibly dear to me because I wouldn't be here talking to you today if that period didn't exist. But it's also hard for me to revisit it in that context, right? And so it's funny, like when 108 started to play again, a big reason for that was just that. Like these songs are so incredibly meaningful, even if some of the inspirations that initially inspired them aren't the same to me or same to the band now as they might have been then. It was such a critical part of my life. So I think the opportunity to play the songs now in like this very like different world and different state for myself individually, but also collectively, has been like a kind of cool thing and therapeutic in a lot of ways. Because like I look back and go like I've been to and I've played over 30 countries, right? Most people would like they would die to do that. And I remember like an example of just how bad it was like I remember when we were on our first tour in Europe and it was with Refused, I think it was. Yeah, it was with Refused and like we were in the Swiss Alps and everybody like wanted to stop and get out and just like check it out. And I was just like, why the fuck are we getting out of the van? Like I got out, took a piss, got back in and went to sleep. Like because like I was just so miserable that like I didn't get to enjoy it. So like now, whether it's playing in the band or just traveling, like I try to go back to a lot of those places because I realized how lucky I was and how dark it must have been for me not to enjoy it. And so I'm like, I have to go back and go to these places or play these songs with these people because and pay homage in a sense for like what it's given me.
It's interesting because I knew that you were, obviously there was a lot going on with you at that time. We would talk about it, but at the same time, and this is something that I always like marveled at and respected. You had, and I don't know if you even realized this, you probably did. You had an amazing sense of humor about a lot of things during that time. Like, I know that you're like, what you said on that tour, like, oh, why the hell are we going outside? Like, I could totally see that. But at the same time, like, you were like, I don't know if it was masked. I don't know what it was, but you were, it was like, dude, I wouldn't have gone on tour with you if I didn't think like, wow, this guy is enjoyable to be around. And so it's interesting, that duality that was going on with you at that time.
Yeah, and I think there are times where I'll get a glimpse and remember back to like those really like kind of fun because it's not like it was all horrible, but like I was in such a dark place that like and especially coming out of it, I think everything when I look back there is kind of like under like through that lens, right? And so it's just like it. I think I do forget some of like those moments. I mean, I definitely remember some really funny moments, during that period of my life, but for the most part, what I remember are the not so funny parts.
Gotcha.
And so it's a this weird thing for me, in that like revisiting the songs and playing them from time to time is actually a very positive thing because like of how meaningful they were, but also at the same time how dark of a place I was in the time where we were originally like creating them. So it's like it's an interesting experience for me to kind of reflect back on how those songs make me feel today to how they made me feel back then.
Well, speaking of creation, that goes into one of the questions. When 108 recorded Holy Name, was the recording as chaotic as that record? I mean, that record sounds like the best kind of chaos. Like you guys are literally like there's an aliveness to that record. Can you explain like how did that come about?
So I actually wasn't there for the recording. They recorded the record, including vocals, I think, with the first singer, um, and then one Resurrection and David Chuck Trees and Worlds Collide. And we played, and I remember when we played, like I knew Vic because Vic and I had lived in the temple together, and I had since like left the temple, but for whatever reason, like Vic and I always got along really well. I didn't get along with the other shelter people all that well back then, but I got along really, really well with Vic. And so we were getting ready to play, and he shows up. I'm like, "What the hell are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, I'm with Worlds Collide, and I have a new band, and we're going to play a few songs for Worlds Collide." I was like, "Okay, cool." And anyway, Ressurection played, and then 108 played, right before Worlds Collide, and I mean, I thought Vic was awesome, and Zach, who is the drummer for Worlds Collide, also played with them, but I didn't really love the singer so much, even though I knew him and I liked him a lot as a person. Like, it didn't make sense, like the sound and the energy with that person and his personality didn't like connect with me. But whatever. Anyway, so the next day I get a call at my house and it's Vic. And he's like, "Hey, like we just kicked the singer out of the band. We want you to sing on the record." Now I had heard those songs like at that show and that's it. So like a week later, I took a Greyhound bus. This is the fucking Greyhound bus story. I took a Greyhound bus
All ties
down
together.
down to Baltimore. They picked me up and we went to the recording studio. And the recording studio was like this tiny studio. I want to say it was like an 8-track recording studio. It's like $10 an hour, right? Like just, not like a great studio. And I went in and the idea was they played me each of the songs. I looked at the lyrics and like Vic walked me through like how he kind of foresaw the lyrics. So again, I didn't really know the songs, right? We're going to record the record then. All the music was recorded. And so I did some tracks of it with the idea of like, no, this isn't going to be what's going to be on the record. It's more of like, let me screen, let me like play around the songs. And then I was like, all right. And then overnight, like I'll think about the songs now that I got a little bit of a feel for them. And the next day we'll go in and I'll record the vocals. And what happened was, so rewinding back, I had lived in a Christian temple for a period of time. And I think, and I think you know this, even when I lived in a Christian temple, I was uniquely myself. Like, in other words, there are a lot of things maybe about the Krishna theology or philosophy or the way that was interpreted by the Hare Krishnas that I just didn't agree with or didn't believe in. But so I kind of, but there were certain parts that were meaningful to me, right? Like the meditation parts, the concepts of karma, all that. When you think about like all the shit I went through as a kid, karma was just like in that concept, like helped me reconcile how did these things happen to me. Anyway, like, but I left the temple and moved out because I'm like, look, like there are things about this I really like, but there are a lot of things like I don't care about, I don't believe in, like whatever. I'm not like this literal person. I don't read the Bhagavatam and go, yep, that's what happened 5,000 years ago, like 2 million years. Like that wasn't my thinking. Anyway, so when Vic asked me to do 108, so I went and did those track vocals, and the idea was that I would kind of sit on it overnight with them, listen to the songs a bunch more, and then the next day go record the vocals. But we get back to the temple because Vic lived in a temple in Potomac, Maryland. But he had his own little shed in room and telephone in it. So we get back there, and I don't know where Vic was, but I was in there on my own, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's this Swami, this like priest, if you will, that I knew that was heavily involved with the Potomac Temple and with shelter and all that stuff. And right away he's just like, all right, so when are you shaving your head? When are you moving in the temple? And I'm just like, I'm not fucking doing any of that. And so I literally got off the phone with him. I don't even remember how I got back to the bus station. I took a bus back that night because I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I want to play songs with Vic. The lyrics and the approach he's taking, I can get into, but I can't get into this whole other thing. So I got on the bus and just fucking left. And so what's funny is like those are the vocals on the record. Like those weren't meant to necessarily be the vocals. Like it was more of me going, okay, I don't know this song. Let me try to sing it real quick. Blah 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 blah. All right, yeah, let me think about that. And then tomorrow, like we'll go in and correct it, do it all. And that's not what happened. I took off after that day, and so